Arise, Queens. This is the All Queens Army, where women are provided with the tools you need to overcome your fears, face your flaws, and experience breakthroughs as you develop self-esteem so strong you emanate royalty. Now, for your host and commander of the All Queens Army, Breizy Time.
Welcome to the All Queens Army podcast. This is your girl, your host, Breizy Time. I am here today with another dope episode for the Queens. I am so excited to drop this episode for you guys. I have a shitload of motivation as usual because today is #Motivation Monday. So you know what that means. Today's segment is from the MotivateHer segment. So I am here all alone. It's a solo episode. You just got me, no guest today. And that's every Monday. I drop a motivational episode for #Motivation Monday. I am very excited as always to share some motivation with you, to share one of my personal stories with you, because you guys know I'm always pouring the tea and sharing a personal story of mine with you guys. So it's juicy. You definitely want to listen in. Make sure you have your queen mug. I have my queen mug. You hear it? Because the tea that I'm going to pour and the tea that will be spilled is piping hot. So grab your queen mug. If you don't have one, go to the website. You can get one. So today we are going to be talking about accountability. Accountability is a big word that is being tossed around a lot in our community. And I want to make sure that all of the queens really understand what accountability means. And the reason that sometimes I kind of feel like, are we really understanding accountability? And if we do understand it, do we really know how to hold ourselves accountable? Because what I find in our community is that we toss a lot of words around. We sling a lot of ideas, a lot of topics, a lot of can do's, should do's, we need to do's around. But we're not always telling people how to execute these things. And if no one has taught some of our queens how to do some of the things that we're telling each other we need to do, then how are we supposed to know how to do them? Okay, we know we need to do stuff, but sometimes we just don't know what that looks like. We don't know what action to put behind it to make it so that we're actually doing it. Some of us are just thinking about it. More of us are just talking about it. More of us are just saying it because it's the new catchphrase for 2018, 2019. But at the end of the day, it is very, very important, queens, to be held accountable by yourself. Hold yourself accountable. We're very, very good at holding other people accountable. We're very, very great at pointing out other people's flaws, at talking about what other people need to do, at dissecting other people's actions and what they're doing wrong and why they're doing it that way and what happened to them in their childhood. We can do that. We can point it out in all kinds of people, friends, family, foes, everybody. But are we looking at ourselves in the mirror and are we holding ourselves accountable? Do we even know what that means? Do we even know what that looks like? Do we even know what it feels like? Because your relationship with yourself is the most important one. Your relationship with yourself is the only one that you need to be dissecting. You don't need to dissect what other people are doing, saying, acting. It doesn't matter because you can't control other people. So we're going to be talking about accountability. I am going to share a story with you guys about me being accountable and talking about when I wasn't so accountable, because there is a period of my life where I wasn't accountable. And I guarantee you there's still some areas in my life today where I'm not holding myself accountable. So not only am I talking to you queens and I'm sharing this story, hell, I'm talking to myself. I am motivating me today as well. So, all right. So here's why I wanted to focus on accountability, queens, because since I've started this podcast about a month and a half ago, well, I launched it about a month and a half ago. I actually have been recording for a few weeks prior to even launching the podcast. What happens is that queens in the queendom, whether that is Instagram, Facebook. I have queens who email me, who text me, who Facebook message me, who DM me on Instagram, and they say, hey, I want to be a guest on your show. And I want to interview everyone who wants to be interviewed. I want to talk to every queen in the queendom and have them to appear on the show. However, before I extend the invitation and share that queen's story, I have to make sure that the queen's story is in alignment with the queendom's mission. The All Queens Army has a mission. And if you guys didn't know, that mission is to tell positive, motivational, inspirational, and encouraging stories of queens overcoming adversity, issues, and problems, and how queens are coping with some of the difficult challenges that they come up to in life. Those are the stories that we tell. We talk about the drama, we talk about the yucky part, we talk about the not so pretty part, we talk about the difficulties, we cry, we laugh, we do all of that. But in that story, when we tell it, we are uplifting each other. We are bigging each other up. We are piping each other up. We're not tearing each other down. We're not talking negatively about what another queen has gone through. We're not bashing queens. We're not unforgiving. We're not doing any of that. There is enough of that negativity going on in the queen community as it is. You can turn on any of the shows. You can turn on Love and Hip Hop. You can turn on the Atlanta Housewives. You can turn on a lot of shows. If you want to hear queens down each other, beat each other up, talk about each other negatively, if that's what you want, if that's the kind of drama you want, you can tune out, because that's not what we do. So I have to make sure that before I invite a queen to come to the show, that her story is one that aligns with our mission. I hear a lot of queen stories because usually they'll email me like a little clip of what's going on in their life, and I have to make the decision if that makes sense for our mission, if that's a story that our queens need to hear on this platform. So with that, with all of the stories that I hear from the queens who are asking about coming on the show, and just in everyday life, general conversations that I have, whether it be out in the community, whether it be at work, whether it be just meeting people, friends, family, whoever, I hear a lot of stories from queens about things that are going on in their lives. A lot of times what I hear is that we're not being accountable. A lot of the stories that I hear are queens talking about what's going on in their life or something that happened in their life. It's almost like you hear a person speaking as if they're the victim. And when you come across as the victim, you're not holding yourself accountable. Now, I understand that things happen in our lives that are outside of our control. We can't control everything that happens, but what we can control is how we react to it and how we respond to it. That's the part that we can control, and that's the part that makes a difference, because you can never control everything that happens, but you can be accountable for the fact that you responded in a certain way, or you can be accountable for how you respond to said thing that happens in your life. So here's the story that I want to tell. Now, you all know that my very first heartbreak was from my son's dad. I have told that story probably 2 or 3 times on different episodes in different capacities. So if you want to hear that full story, you may have to tune into a previous episode. I'm not going to tell that story. I'm referencing that because after that heartbreak, I had a series of relationships. They were all very unsuccessful. But during the times that I was in those relationships were just a disaster. And as I learned to be accountable, I had to learn and realize that those relationships weren't a disaster because the guys were a disaster. The relationships were a disaster because I was a disaster, because I was in a yucky place, because I wasn't in the right frame of mind for love. I wasn't in the frame of mind to receive love. I was difficult. I was insecure. I had a lot of things going on, and a lot of those things stemmed from the fact that my heart had gotten broken. I was literally just walking around protecting myself, walking around feeling like I'm not going to let that happen again. I'm not going to let someone hurt me again. The reason that I say that showed a lack of accountability for me is because the way that you move on from situations that hurt you, or situations that cause you pain, or situations that you realize, you know what, I don't want to repeat that. The way that you move on from those things is you learn from them. You don't move on from those things with an armor around yourself like a soldier trying to prevent them from happening again. Because what you're not doing, if you put on that armor and you try to protect yourself from those things happening to you again, what you're doing is not owning and not learning from the situation that caused the pain or the heartache. You're not learning from it. When you go through tough times, when you go through heartbreak, when you go through financial issues, whatever bad thing that you've gone through, whatever thing that you would hope never happens again, you have to learn from that thing. The reason that those things happen is because there's something about you that you have to learn, and the universe is trying to teach you so that you can move on and you can evolve. You've got to elevate. You've got to evolve. You have to look at life like school. When we're first born, we know nothing. And then we go through school, and then some of us go through college. But remember, you have to pass the first grade to get to the second, and you have to pass high school to get to college. And what happens if you don't pass? You repeat it again. Life puts us in situations, or life delivers situations and circumstances circumstances in our lives because there's an area there in that situation that we need to grow and evolve. If you look at that circumstance that wasn't so pleasant as one that you want to prevent from happening again, you're not learning the lesson from it. The lesson comes in you understanding why you're in the situation to begin with. You have to understand what part did you play in being in that situation. So for me, when I found myself in a slew, I would say 3 back-to-back relationships that just didn't go anywhere, where I was hurt even further. When I look back and look at those relationships, at the time I was blaming the guy. He did this, he did that, he lied, he wouldn't love me, he was guarded, he was this, he's not ready for a relationship, he's not ready to settle down, all of these things, right? And those were the reasons that I felt like I was in the situation that I was in. And it wasn't true. I was in the situation that I was in because I allowed those people to be a part of my life, because I did that. I accepted it. I opened myself up to it. Nobody forced me to it. It's not the guy's fault that I was there. You can't control how the guy acts. I can't control the state of mind he's in, but what would attract me to that state of mind? What would attract me to tolerate it for 6 months or a year or 2 or however long you were in this situation? You have to look at it from that perspective. You have to look at it and say, why am I here? Why was I there? Why did I tolerate that? I had to learn, I had to realize, I had to understand is that I was in this situation, not because I was forced, but I was in the situation because I chose to go with. I chose to be there for however long I was there. And I had to understand myself. I had to understand, why would I even allow that? Why did I choose that option? Why did I go down that path? It's about you. It was about me. You have to own why you're in the situation that you're in. And that's a hard thing, right? Accountability isn't easy, because when you have to own, like, it's so easy and convenient for us to look at a situation and feel like it's the other person's fault. It's life's fault. It's the guy's fault. It's my mama's fault. It's my daddy's fault. It's somebody's fault. It's easier, because when you have to look at yourself and you have to own that it's your fault, that's hard, because you got to take a hard look at yourself. So if you thought that the person that was treating you badly, oh, they're such a disgusting person, such a terrible human being, such a horrible, horrible person, you have to understand that really you're talking about yourself. What would make you like such a horrible person? And a lot of people will say, well, I didn't know, but I didn't see it. Well, it doesn't matter whether you knew. It doesn't. You attracted it. You attracted this person. You attracted this situation. You attracted the circumstance. What about you attracted it? Why would a person who's not capable or willing to love you look at you and think, I can definitely get one over on her? Why would they think that? What are you emitting in your energy? It's about you. How did you create this situation? And again, this is a tough topic because a lot of queens don't want to accept this. A lot of queens love to blame everyone else. I'm telling you, the stories that I hear from the queens who want to come on the show, I pick the queens very carefully. Some of the queens that have been on the show, it was an invitation from me. I reached out to them and said, I want you to come on the show because I see something about how they deal with a certain situation, and I think it would be interesting for other queens to hear. But a lot of the queens who come to me, they come to me and the story they want to tell is absolutely a situation that they've created, but they don't see that. They don't see that they've created the situation. They see that the situation was just given to them. So I want to talk about some of the characteristics, some of the things that you guys can watch out for that will help you to realize if you are still not being accountable in some of the different areas of your life. So the first one we talked about, which is victimization. If you are looking at yourself as a victim, if you're looking at a situation like this situation happened to you and kind of like, woe is me. And that's the second part, feeling sorry for yourself. That's number 2. If you are a victim and you're feeling sorry for yourself, you're not owning this situation. You're not owning the part you played in it. The third is probably the most controversial and one that you guys may not agree with, but it's real. And the third is manipulation. When you manipulate people into thinking that they're wrong, into thinking that they caused something, into thinking that they've caused this problem, you're manipulating. A lot of people manipulate while not taking accountability because you're trying to shift the responsibility to someone else. Because what happens is when we put ourselves in certain situations or experience things, subconsciously there's a guilt that we feel that we're not necessarily acknowledging, but there's a guilt. And when there's a guilt, a lot of times you try to shift that to someone else because it doesn't feel very good to feel bad or feel guilty about something that you did. And guilt is not like, oh, you stole something and nobody knows and deep down. No, guilt is when you are not, when there's something that you know you want to do, need to do, should be doing, and you're just not doing it. Guilt comes from letting yourself down. Guilt comes from not living up to the standards that you know you can live up to. Guilt comes from not performing at the potential that you know you have. It's just, guilt is literally you feeling like you've let yourself down. Guilt is, I'm on a diet. I did really well for the past 3 weeks. I lost 15 pounds. And over the weekend, I ate 6,894 calories. You feel bad. You feel like you let yourself down. And when you feel guilt, you usually, if you're not going to own the guilt, if you're not going to face it, if you're not going to look at it and say, okay, you know what? I messed up. I ate too much. I wasn't supposed to do that. I'll jump back on the horn and I'll do better tomorrow. I'm not going to beat myself up because I did great for 2 weeks. If you're not having those types of conversations with yourself, then 9 times out of 10, you blame. Blame looks like, and let's use the same scenario as an example. Blame looks like, oh, my mom cooked all this food. Well, your mom didn't shove the food down your mouth, baby. You ate it. So you have to stop blaming other people. And I know that's a small thing, but imagine that on a larger scale. Imagine that on a larger scale. And that's what a lot of queens are doing. We're shifting. We're manipulating other people. We're making other people accountable for how we feel. So if we feel insecure, like think about like relationships, you feel insecure. You feel like this thing is happening. You feel it. Well, it might not be that the other person is making you feel that way. Those feelings could be coming from your own insecurities. Those feelings could be coming from past relationships that you had where you were lied to, cheated on, whatever. So lack of accountability can also cause us to manipulate a little bit, ladies. So we have to be careful because, I mean, obviously none of us want to be manipulators. Those are some of the characteristics. Now, here's some of the benefits of holding yourself accountable. You take your power back. When you hold yourself accountable, there's nothing in life that can happen to you anymore. You go from things happening to you in life to you creating the life that you want when you're accountable. If you own the things that are happening to you, you're not making what you experience someone else's responsibility. But the other part of accountability that is wonderful is you being able to forgive yourself, which is the most important thing. 2, your ability to be able to forgive other people. And when you do that, when you forgive yourself and when you forgive other people, you release pain and you release bitterness and you free yourself. You free your heart. You stop holding yourself hostage. You stop holding other people hostage. You release. You take a burden off your shoulders. You feel so light, so fluffy, so wonderful. And let me explain why forgiveness is very important. First, you have to forgive yourself. And the reason that forgiving yourself is very important is because we're very hard on ourselves. We don't give ourselves a lot of margin for error. If using the example of you've been on a diet for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you've lost 15 pounds, that's a lot. That's a great accomplishment. And then you have 2 days where you eat like a pig and maybe you put back on 1 or 2 pounds and you will harp over that for so long. You will feel like the worst person on earth. You will feel like a loser. You will feel like, oh God, I'm never going to hit my goal. Now think about that. You're beating yourself up for 2 days of a lack of performance, but you've had 2-3 weeks of great performance. When we start to feel like that, when we start to feel that guilt, it is very important to forgive ourselves, to forgive yourself and look at it and say, you know what, like you have to change your mindset and say, you know what, I'm not going to feel bad about these 2 days where I ate like a pig. I'm not going to feel bad about the 2 pounds I put on. Hell, I lost 15. I'm not going to feel bad about 2 days of eating. Hell, I went 15 days and I did great. So you just have to change your mindset and you have to forgive yourself and you have to give yourself leeway. You have to give yourself margin for error. You're not perfect. None of us are. I'm not perfect. You're going to have days where you backslide. You're going to have moments where you go back into a bad habit. You're not perfect. But if you have more good days, more days where you're doing the things that you expect of yourself than you do of the days where you're backsliding, well, then that's what you need to celebrate. Out of 17 days, I did great 15 of them. Hey, I'm the shit. Forgive yourself and give yourself some margin for error. And when you do that, when you forgive yourself and when you give yourself margin for error, queens, you will forgive other people and you will give other people margin for error. See, the reason that you're so hard on other people and you won't let other people make mistakes and you make them out to be the most terrible people in the world because they made a mistake is because that's the expectation that you have for yourself. So you have that same expectation for other people. But people are just people. You're just a person. And we're all human. We all make mistakes. We're all imperfect. None of us are going to do anything 100% of the time. And none of us are going to do anything 100% perfectly, period. So you have to forgive yourself. And you have to give yourself margin for error. And that has to be okay. It has to be okay to fail a couple times, for you to fall short. It has to be okay sometimes for you to pay a bill late. It has to be okay sometimes for you to forget something that was really important. You have to stop beating yourself up about every little thing you do wrong. See, that's why accountability is so difficult, because we're holding ourselves to too high of a standard. So when we mess up, we focus on the mess up as opposed to focusing on all the days that we did great. It's a change in mindset. And because you hold yourself so high to a standard. But imagine that you hold yourself to too high of a standard and then don't take accountability when you mess up. You know why? Because it's hard to be accountable for perfection. You can't be accountable when you expect perfection. So instead of being accountable when you expect yourself to be perfect, it's easier for you to blame other people. It's easier for you to become a victim. It's easier for life to look like this is happening to me. And it's not true. Life is happening because of you. It's not happening to you. Lower your expectations of yourself just a little bit. And when you lower your expectations of yourself just a tad bit, when you give yourself a little bit of margin for error, you will also give other people margin for error. You will also lower your expectations of people a little bit, and you'll forgive people because you realize that people don't just naturally come into your life to make a mockery of it. It happens for your own evolution and your own growth. Just like the things that people are doing, it's happening because they need to grow. We're all just on this earth, on this planet, growing and fucking up together. No one's perfect. You're not. So stop expecting perfection, and then when you're not perfect, not wanting to own your mistake. Understand that you will make mistakes. Understand that you will fall short, and be okay with it. Be okay with it. Pat yourself on the back. High five yourself and say, girl, okay, you fucked up today, but you got this. Jump back on the horse tomorrow and fix it. That's it. It's that simple. You got to just take it a little easy on yourself. That's number 2. That's the second benefit of being accountable, is ownership and forgiveness. Because forgiveness of yourself will release the pain and the bitterness that you feel for other people and other situations. And once you forgive yourself and you give yourself some margin for error, you'll forgive other people, and you'll see that it's okay for them to have made some mistakes too. All right, here's number 3. And I think I just said it actually. It gives you the ability to create the life you want. When you're accountable, you now have the power to create the life you want. You realize that life isn't just happening to you. You realize that the universe isn't just delivering scenarios to you. What the universe is doing is delivering scenarios for you to learn from. The universe is delivering scenarios for you to overcome, for you to work through them, not ignore them, not run away from them. You got to work through them. The only way to get to the other side of something is to go through it. You can't run away from it. You got to go through it, because through it is where you learn about yourself. Through something, doing something is how you learn how to do it. You don't learn anything from standing on the sideline. You don't learn anything from being in the stands. You learn on the field. So you got to go through things. If you're going to create the life that you want, you have to go and face the things that you're dealing with head on. And you have to own those situations and realize that there's a lesson in it. What am I supposed to learn about this? How is this evolving me into a better, stronger queen? How is this making me a better mother? How is this making me a better friend? How is this making me a better family member, a better daughter? How is this making me better at my job? How is this making me better in my business? How is this preparing me for something that I've prayed for and I've asked for? That's how you have to look at things. When difficult things are happening, you have to look at it as, how is this prepping me for ... Only you can fill in those lines. How is this teaching me a lesson about ... You fill in those lines. And once you understand what you're supposed to learn or gain from the said experience, you realize that it's not about the other person. It's not about the situation. It's just about the lesson. It's about the preparation. It's about you. What were you supposed to garner and gain from this? Now, once you realize what you were supposed to garner and gain, that is accountability. That's you owning it. That's saying that this situation was presented in my life for me to ... You fill it in. And I promise you guys, that is life fucking changing. Once you realize what was supposed to come of this, what was I supposed to learn? Even bad things that happen, guys, like what was I supposed to learn? So all of you know, the bad thing that happened to me, got my heart broke by my son's father. What was I supposed to learn from this? I wasn't supposed to learn that he's a shitty person. He's not. I wasn't supposed to learn that, you know what, next time I ain't gonna let no dude treat me like this. No, that's defensive. That's not what I was supposed to learn. What I was supposed to learn is that my fucking level of security and who I was, my self-worth, my value was not where it needed to be. And because my self-worth, my value wasn't where it needed to be, I accepted some fucked up behavior that I shouldn't have accepted. That was the lesson for me. It didn't have anything to do with him. It didn't make him a bad person. It made me not able to see my own worth, period. That's what it did. And once I learned that and I accepted that, then I raised my worth and my value. That's what I worked on. I said, you know what? I need to work on my self-confidence, my worth, my value, because me having that low self-worth allowed me to accept some things I shouldn't have accepted. It wasn't about him. It never was. It doesn't have anything to do with what kind of person he was or bad, good, indifferent. It doesn't matter. It's not for me to judge who he was as a person. It had nothing to do with him. But because we do that and we make other people accountable for how we felt, when really how I felt is on me because I needed to work on something within me. And that's what that situation taught me. So I didn't need to be mad at him. I didn't need to hate him. I didn't need to see him as a bad person because it had nothing to do with him. It was the universe giving me a lesson. Raise up, queen. You deserve more. You're tolerating some shit. Now, if I never accepted that lesson, I wouldn't have the husband I have who treats me like a fucking queen. You've got to own your own stuff, y'all, because I'm telling you, it gives you the ability to create the life that you want instead of feeling like life is happening to you, which is what creates the victim mentality. We have to stop doing that. Okay, now I'm going to go into what can you do to start taking accountability, because one of my pet peeves of things that I see on social media, on the internet, and our culture is that everybody tells you guys what you need to do, but nobody's telling you how to do it. So I want to give you guys some tips on some things that you can do to start taking accountability, because if I'm going to say to the queens that here's some of the things that we need to work on, I also want to give you some tips or some resources on how to do that. And this is just speaking from my own perspective, what I was able to do and kind of how I was able to bring myself out of that victim mentality. And I still do it today because there's still some areas in my life where I find myself still blaming, and I find myself still not necessarily holding myself accountable sometimes, because remember, we're not perfect, but you just have to be able to identify when you're slipping, when you're falling back into old habits. So here's what I do when I want to ensure that I'm holding myself accountable. Number one, I write down the different things that are going on in my life that are not where I want them to be, like the things that I'm not happy with. I write them down and just get a little journal, get a little book and write it down. Write down the different areas of your life, whether it's relationships, whether it's your business, whether it's finances, whether it's money, whether it's your ability to save, whether it's problems with your children, relationship with your family, relationships with your mother, issues at work, where you live, whatever it is. Write it down. Write down all of the things in your life that are not where you would like them to be. And then once you write them down, make another column next to it and ask yourself, why is it like that? For example, if you live in a house that you hate, you're in an apartment you hate, you just don't like your living environment. That's one of the things. That's one of the things you don't like. Now make a second column and write, well, why are you there? What's the situation? What are the circumstances that are causing you to be there? Is it because you can't afford to live where you really want to live? Is it because you jacked up your credit and now you don't think you can apply for somewhere? Just write it down. Now, the third thing I want you to do, and this is where accountability takes place, is I want you to ask yourself, why are you accepting it? Why are you accepting whatever it is? So I'll keep the same example. If the problem is you don't like your living environment, you live somewhere you don't want to live, and the reason it is because you jacked up your credit and you can't apply for a better place because they won't accept you, then ask yourself, why are you tolerating it? And that's a hard thing, because a lot of people say, well, what am I supposed to do about that? I made mistakes. My credit is jacked. I can't fix it. But you can. Now, the reason that accountability is important is because if you don't hold yourself accountable for you living somewhere that is beneath your standards or where you're uncomfortable, you have to own why. If the why is I jacked up my credit, then you own that. You made some mistakes. What mistakes did you make? Why did you make them? You have to own those things, because if you don't, you'll repeat those things again and you'll never get out of this situation. So own it. That's the first step. Oh, I made mistakes. I made mistakes with my money. I made mistakes with my finances. So now my credit is jacked and I can't move because the place I'd like to go, my credit isn't good enough for. Own that you made the mistakes. Now, after you make that ownership and you own it and you learn the lesson from it, now you have the power to do something about it. Now some options will come to you. The universe will start to deliver some options to you of things that you can do. Randomly, a credit repair person may come across your path because you've owned it. But before you are able to own it, you can't do anything about it. The universe won't even deliver you the solutions at all, because again, it's like school. Until you learn the lesson, you can't move forward. So that's something that I do. I have a little journal and I write in my journal almost every day. And when I realize that I'm in a situation or I'm dealing with something that isn't fixing itself, it's just staying stagnant. I'm in this situation and I'm frustrated and I don't like it. I write it down. What is the situation? Then I write, why is it happening? Then I write down, what did I do? What decisions did I make that created this? And once I realized that, then I own that. Okay, this is how I messed up. This is the decision I made that got me here. And once you do that, I'm telling y'all, it's like magic. You see shit start to move in your life so quickly. Shifts happen immediately as soon as you own it. So that is my message for you queens today. I hope that you got something from this. I absolutely love and appreciate all of you queens so much. I appreciate every download to the podcast, every listen, every like, every follower on social media. I really love y'all for real. Okay. So as always, make sure you follow us on Instagram. We are also on Facebook at All Queens Army. You can also find me via email. If you too would like to share your story on the All Queens Army podcast, you can email me at breezy@allqueensarmy.com. That is BREIZY. I love you queens. Let me know if you have any feedback, thoughts. Give me a rating, give me a follow, something, y'all. I love you queens. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for listening to the All Queens Army podcast. If you want to connect with Breizy Time and the All Queens Army, be sure to follow them on IG and Facebook at All Queens Army. Or head over and check out the All Queens Army YouTube channel. Until next time.